All right, good evening, everyone. This is the webinar for 2019 that we're starting. It's something new we decided to do this year. And basically, we're going to go over the grant objectives. It's changed this year, so we thought we should kind of discuss it, the funding categories, who all is eligible to apply, how applications are evaluated, the deadline, and then we're going to open it up for questions because this really is more about future applications and grant project ideas and just kind of reaching out to everybody in one easier fashion than me getting 50 different emails and having to forward them to Ruth and whatnot. So, here we go. The objectives of the Education Advisory Board are to promote waste prevention and recycling, job training, and education through 1. Waste prevention and recycling programs that serve schools, such as recycling supplies, program materials, and other education activities, such as field trips. Another bullet point is project waste prevention, source reduction, reuse, recycling, composting, and procurement of recycled content products. This year, we are especially interested in supporting school projects in food waste prevention, food donation, and organic separation pursuant to Senate Bill 1383. We also will prioritize projects that provide a learning opportunity for students and/or the community and projects that result in high-quality recovered materials and products. Another point is priority will be given to programs that change the culture or behavior of waste prevention and recycling in schools. That's a new bullet point this year we wanted to point out. Community education through waste prevention, source separation, and recycling education programs. And as always, an objective is job training and internships in the field of waste prevention and recycling. We also put a note on there this year that the board will not be funding hand dryers, water stations, battery chargers, document readers, gardening equipment. There may be some other little things, but we are not going to fund any applications that have those items on there this year. For the funding categories, we've been getting some inquiries from people with like wanting to know what we fund. Mini grants, there's a minimum of 500, but we funded less before. They go up to 3,000. Project grants averaged around 20,000 in the past. There's a maximum request of 50,000, but we want you to note that with lower funding levels, this grant category is expected to be very competitive as it is each and every year, which is also exciting, but it just makes it harder to provide full funding to everybody with their requests. And in addition, no more than 3 applications will be considered from one applicant. That was a question I had received already this year, so I figured I'd throw that on there. Who is eligible to apply? Grant money is limited to individuals and organizations serving citizens of Alameda County and the city of San Ramon, with the exception of franchise waste haulers. So for some past grant recipients are teachers, schools, school districts, student councils, PTAs, individuals, and other nonprofit organizations. And let's see the next slide. How are our applications going to be evaluated? So as we do every year, we have 2 meetings. One is a mini grant meeting and one is a project grant meeting. They will be in end of March, beginning of April. The dates will be posted here shortly as soon as we confirm the library room. And we kind of have a set of questions that the board goes through and discusses. Obviously, the main one is, does the applicant meet the board's eligibility requirements? Does that applicant meet the criteria and the new grant objectives that we've posted? Another way to be evaluated is how well does the request meet one or more of the objectives? Are the project goals and tasks clear and concise? Are the project tasks, timeline, and budget realistic? Is it something that can be done in the year and without being totally mind-blowing and unrealistic? Number 5 is the applicant qualified to accomplish the project? Number 6 is, does the project leverage other public and private resources, such as funding grants or other grant-making organizations, etc.? One of those would be like Stopways, for example. Their grants are open as well right now and close around the same time as ours. So if you were to get funding from Stop Waste, be sure to show that in your budget for us. And number 7 is, will the project's deliverables be useful or transferable to others? So one of our goals for the next few years is to really increase our information on our website and be able to share and help spread the word. And that will be, that's a new evaluation point that we have added for 2019. The application deadline, all applications must be received by midnight on Friday, March 2019. So that is in less than a month now. They've been out since the first week of January. So if you don't know where they are on the website. The link's been posted on our Facebook. You can email me at that email, altamonteab@gmail.com. It's also where you're going to submit your applications. You will receive a receipt from me that says the application has been received. Please allow 2 to 3 days for me to get that to you. My phone that last week is my poor email and my poor phone. It goes a little crazy. But if you do not hear back from me within 2 to 3 days, please make sure that I've received your application. And then you have to allow some time for the board to review the applications. We'll do the funding meetings, and then you will be given notice on or before May 1st. I try my best to get it out as soon as I can, or at least get it posted, but as long as we communicate good, then I try my best for everybody. So with that being said, we'd like to open it up to some questions. So if you would like to unmute yourselves and ask questions, feel free. I know Ruth is going to unmute and be able to answer. So this time is basically for everyone to join in and ask questions, throw some ideas out. It's just kind of a nice way for all of us to gather in all separate places for one topic.
Hi, I have a question. It's Lisa Klein from Love Twice. Hello?
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, okay. So, hi, we were funded last year. Thank you very much. We provide baby clothes to homeless babies that we collect in the community. I wanted to see if this would still be applicable to apply, because it seems like this maybe be more of a education focus that you're leaning towards this year.
Hey, this is Ruth. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to say that I would not discourage anybody from applying, if anybody that meets the grant criteria, but because, you know, the grant, particularly the project grants are competitive, something like the program you described could possibly be given a lower priority. So I wouldn't say don't apply, but I would just say that, you know, it's possible that this year, depending on how many grants we get in and how competitive it is, it might be a lower priority given the criteria that we developed for this year.
Good to know.
So
thank you.
that's kind of it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, this is Rachel with a question. I'm a parent in Albany, in the Albany Unified School District, and I've just started on my own working after hours as another parent to try and launch a green team in the community. There are no green teams at the school. There's no resources in the school district nor from the city. And so I was just going to apply as an individual, thinking we have been working to try and reduce waste, and just one simple thing on like just getting compost bins in all the classrooms at the elementary schools so that compost goes from the classrooms snack time actually into the compost bins instead of into the trash. Is this something like, would this be a possibility to apply as an individual? And which kind of grant do you think I should go for, a mini grant or one of the bigger ones? Because included in this, I would hope to go into the schools and give mini lessons to the teachers and the kids about how to use the compost.
Sure. Yeah, there's no restriction. This is Ruth again. There's no restriction in terms of applying as an individual for a project like what you describe, but I would definitely want, Lauren could probably put you in touch with some other resources that we have. So last year we funded Nancy Deming, who works with the Oakland Unified Schools, to do a project where she supports all of the school districts, kind of on a request basis. And so she's, for example, supporting New Haven schools on recycling and composting. And she is potentially available to you to support you in your work, so you don't have to kind of reinvent the Green Team program and reinvent the outreach to the schools. So I would definitely, it would show a lot of, it would really improve, I think, a grant application if you could show some knowledge of what the Albany schools are already doing. If you could meet with, I think it might be Claire Griffin or the coordinator at the
Yes,
city
I've been
level.
meeting with Claire.
Yeah. And then if you
Great.
could show, some knowledge of that, and then make
Mhm.
sure that you're taking advantage of any resources that Nancy has available. I think she may also have a small grant for funding for containers. So depending on that, and so if you would kind of tailor your grant to the specific situation in Albany and in the Albany Unified School District, make sure that you can show that you have the support of the district staff and that you've met with them and they welcome your participation. That would be the kinds of things that would make it, more likely to be funded. And then in terms of a mini grant versus a project grant, as we discussed, the mini grants are fairly, we try and put a lot of funding in the mini grants because we really like getting that money out to schools and teachers and individuals who are doing things on the ground, grassroots. And so we try and put a lot of funding into the mini grant program. So the $3,000, we try and fund as many of those as we possibly can. For the project grants, it's more competitive, and so you're just competing with other bigger projects. So so if you can maybe leverage funding through the city, through the district, and fund the things that can't get funded any other way, that might also show, a favorable light on your application. So does that help?
That's helpful. Thank you.
Great. And Lauren can put you in touch with Nancy if you need to be put in touch with Nancy.
Yeah, this is Jenna here representing Earth Team. Feel free to also reach out to us. We've developed an application package. Just basically how to put a system in on campus. So if you want to have that resource, we're more than happy to share that out as well.
That's awesome. And Jenna, if that's something you could also share with Lauren, because I mean, this is exactly the kind of connections that we want to make across the service area, the area where we make grants, is to make sure that everybody can figure out how to do this without having to reinvent the wheel and can take advantages of other things that people have developed. And to the extent possible, we can put links on our website or put people in touch with each other, and that would be really awesome.
Absolutely. We're in some finalization stages, but it's pretty much done. We are preparing to get it ready to be uploaded to your website though, and be printed out and shared out in that way. But I'm happy to share it out with what it is now, since it is 95% of the way there.
That's great.
Great.
Hi, this is Vivian from Sunset School in Livermore.
Hi.
Hi. So the grant money that we received for the recycling program, when we turn in our receipts to get reimbursed, so it's in an account and our secretaries manage the money, and then they reimburse us just as usual. But then should we be saving everything also? And then do we give that to you at some point?
We don't require that the grantees provide receipts. We do ask you tell us how the money was spent and if you met the grant criteria. So we're not, so your reimbursement process at your district is, can just stay within the district. You do not have to give the receipts or that accounting to us, but we do want to, we do want you to give us feedback about how you spent the money. Does that help?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, and this is Fenna, Vivian.
Hi, Fenna. Hi, Fenna.
Hi. And I wanted to add to that just saving all that documentation so that we also have proof that it's taken out of the right account and that other things, that things are taken
good
out
idea.
of the right accounts in our district.
Good
So
idea.
so I just keep that in the folder for the green, gift. And then also it might be something to share for resources that we can look at, collectively.
Okay,
that
thank
may
you.
be useful for other people. So
Thank
good
you.
question.
So we really can spend it on whatever we want to have, the way we want to get across these lessons to the students, whether that's through text or recycle games or new posters or something.
So it's within the context of the application, right? So if you've told us we're going to buy these 5 books and these 15 videos and we're going to invest in developing a game, we want to hear back from you that that's what you invested in, right?
Okay.
If you need a change, we do have a process with our grant program where we have a mid-year report. And at the mid-year report, if you find out, for example, you know what, those 15 videos weren't available, so instead we're spending it on these other 5 books and 3 CDs or whatever, you know, so that we are just kept informed about what you're planning to do. But sometimes at the beginning of the grant, you don't know exactly what it is. So
right.
So we encourage you to give us as much information that you can at the time of your application, but we recognize.
Right. And we did.
Yeah. But yes, but we recognize that, you know, so for example, people will buy bins and they'll think you're going to get this particular bin at this particular rate. And it turns out that's not available. So you have to buy this other bin for this other rate. And that's fine. We don't micromanage the funds that way, but we just want to make sure that you don't say, well, I was going to buy bins, but instead I bought this, I don't know, the playground equipment. You know what I'm saying? It has to be consistent with the grant criteria and what you said in your application.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, this is so exciting. Thank you again for granting it to our schools.
Absolutely. That's exactly the kind of thing we want to see happen all across the area.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other point that Fenna was making about keeping track of what you buy and how you buy it is that might be useful information for other grantees. So for example, one school several years ago invested in party kits for their school. And party kits are like reusable plates and cups and napkins and forks and things. And they researched what it would cost, and and then other schools have kind of said, oh, that's a really great idea. Where did you get them? How much did you pay? And so kind of on a school to school basis, they can know, well, this is how much it was. This is where I got it. And it's another way of sharing with other schools or other community organizations how to invest in things with, again, not having to research it from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
And so we like to put that information on our website so that people will be like, oh man, party kits, that would be great. What do they cost and where do I get them? So it's kind of like that also is very helpful. Or I bought these 15 videos and they were great, but you know, this 16th one wasn't that great or whatever, you know, or that's no longer available, or I was able to download it for free, or any kind of information that you think would be helpful to others. We would love to see that kind of thing in the grant report as well. So we do a mid-year report. And a lot of times people get nervous about the mid-year report because they've only just got their grant money, you know, within the last few months, and they've only just started to figure out how to procure the materials, and they won't have a lot to report. So as Lauren said, you know, we usually get the notice out by May 1st. We try to get the grant agreement out by June 1st, July 1st, maybe when the check comes. It may trickle in depending on how fast the grantees get it back to us. So you may not get your money till July, August, and then school starts, right?
Right.
So all we ask in the mid-year report is just really us to update you on how you're doing. You know, how are you doing? Are you able to get what you want? What are your plans going forward? Just so we have a mid-year check-in. And then the final report, if it's a one-year grant, we'll just say, here's what we did, here's the results, here's how many students that we, or how many, you know, whatever the project is. This is how many compost bins we built, this is how much compost we created, you know, whatever it is, we just like to hear about the results. And then very occasionally people are not able to complete a one-year grant within 1 year. And so we will occasionally get what we would call final reports that will say, you know, I was supposed to finish by the summer and it's going to take me another semester or another 6 months to finish the project. Can I have an extension to the grant? And we will almost always just say, of course, and then we would expect you to give the report at the end. So whenever you finish the project, finish spending the money, have some grant results, that's when we want to see the final report.
Okay. And you said, or in one of the emails, it said that something has changed. Did something what's changed? Is it a major change?
No, and I don't know, Lauren, if you want to unmute and kind of explain it, but we wanted to differentiate between our mid-year grant and our final grant, because we acknowledge that a lot of the things that we were asking you to respond to, like how did everybody do and what are the results, and we had some students who had applied for grants and they were kind of freaked out. They're like, oh my gosh, we don't have any results yet. Are we big failures? And the answer is no. So we are going to be changing the mid-year grant, not for this current round of grantees, but for this next application process, where the mid-year report is really just more a mid-year report. Any updates, any changes, what's the status, how are you doing, without having an expectation at that mid-year report that you have a lot of results. I think that's really the only change. Is there anything else, Lauren, you wanted to add to that?
No, Ruth, you're correct. And that's not been posted yet. I didn't want to affect the 2018-2019 grantees, as they just submitted progress reports December 31st, and their final reports will be due in June. So this change will affect the 2019-2020 grant cycle. The report forms, or the progress report and final report questions, are included in your agreement that you'll receive in the midsummer area, and then it's also posted online, and I try to email it out and get it out as far in advance as I can and send reminders, like I said, just so I don't have to go through and organize everything last minute and miss one. But basically we want to show that we don't need full results by December. We want you to take the whole year and take your time and do a great job. So just kind of let us know where you're at. Like Ruth said, no pressure if you're not as far as others, or if you don't have all the answers, but just kind of check in. You know, things change over the year, and 6 months is a long time and it's a fast time at the same time. So it's just a good way for everyone to check in, for the board to see everyone's progress. And it kind of also helps us spur ideas for the next grant cycle, because in November, December, we're working on grant guidelines. And so by reading progress reports, that helps us say, hey, let's focus on this for 2021 or something like that. So we're trying to hope that it'll help everybody out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I actually have to sign off now. Thank you so much for hosting this. Is it okay if you're going to have this recorded if I miss any other questions that might pertain to me?
Yes, this will be recorded, and as soon as the file is sent to me from Zoom, I'll get it posted on the website and hopefully a link on the Facebook. I'll also email it out, because I know some other people had other obligations today. So the slides, basically everything on the slides are from our grant guidelines, which is on the website. But I will post all of this information as well for everyone. So.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alrighty. Okay. Good night.
Bye.
Hi,
Bye-bye.
can you hear me?
Bye. Bye, Fenna.
Goodbye.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Rena. I work at Oakland Leaf, which is a after-school provider in East Oakland, and we also have an internship program that y'all funded, which was awesome, for composting. It's an urban gardening program, and I'm curious a little bit to hear more about your focus on education in schools and how that would transfer to an after-school program or during those after hours, if that's still applicable, or if we should still focus solely on our urban ecology internship program.
Again, I don't think we meant to restrict the grant applications. We are hoping for a good variety of grant applications from a lot of different sources, nonprofits, school-based programs, individuals, teachers, students, anybody, in Alameda County or City of San Ramon. So we don't want to say we would not get funding. We were just trying to express that we really do want schools to, we've had our grant program in place for a number of years right now. We still have schools, like example of the schools in Albany, that, man, they don't have all the equipment that they need, and they don't have all the training that they need. And it's like, man, we really want to focus on giving some funding to schools this year. So we don't want to discourage anybody from applying. If you have other really good projects that meet our grant criteria, We just wanted to say, hey, look, we're gonna do this focus this year. So we really want to encourage schools and individuals who work at schools to apply. So it's really up to you. I think that whatever the need is greatest and what you think would do the most good and that meets the spirit of the grant criteria, that's probably what you should apply for. Does that help?
Yeah, totally. Thank you very much.
And actually, can I add something into that? This is Nancy. If you can check it, so Lauren, if it's possible for you to get my information. So because you work at a few of the Oakland Unified Schools, right? Like Acorn and Encompass?
Yeah, we do. We work at all public schools.
Yeah, so we
charters, yeah.
So we should talk because so I work for Oakland Unified, and so some of those schools I support, you know, just their infrastructure, so we can see what might be possible from the district's program and also the support that I can do with my county Altamont funding. So we should talk before you suss out like what you want to do for your grant.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions or ideas anyone wants to throw out? I don't want to rush anyone. We've got about 8 minutes left on our little thing here before it kicks us off. So just want to see if anyone else has anything else they'd like to add.
Yeah, any other board members want to chime in? Oh, go ahead.
Would salaries be included in any of the funding, or is that a line item that's restricted?
We don't restrict salaries, but I just tell you the bias and bent of our board is that they're not enthusiastic about funding salaries.
That makes sense. I just thought I'd ask.
And not enthusiastic about funding like administrative overhead and rent. And I think that's really hard, particularly for nonprofits, because, you know, they do have to fund their executive director time, and they do have to fund their program manager time, and they do have to fund their admin time and their rent and et cetera. So we totally acknowledge that in order to the project, it's very reasonable to need to cover those things. The reason that our board has sort of been, you know, we don't want to, you know, we resist sort of funding those in a big way, is just because we have a small fund. We want to try and do as much as possible with it. And we want, you know, folks who are with NGOs or, you know, with organizations that need to raise funds for salaries, that, you know, we can only give a 1-year grant or up to a 3-year grant. And so it's not something that can really be relied upon. And I don't think that's super helpful, but that's just been where our board has been coming from, that, you know, we love to fund, you know, projects, and we love to fund internships, and we have funded salaries and we've funded overhead. It's just that we're not super enthusiastic about it. I don't know if that helps.
That's a perfect answer. Thank you.
And this is Spenna. I was going to say, you know, there are some things that that are actually needs out there in the schools and probably in the community as far as educating, you know, people according to the grant criteria. So sometimes if, you know, I think this is a great place to ask questions and see if the idea fits, and but also to reach out if there are certain things that you're wondering, you know, what's needed out there. And I don't know if that makes sense, but.
This is Jenna talking on behalf of Earth Team again. Just kind of thinking off of what you just mentioned. And I've talked a little bit about this with Nancy as well, about our past work trying to put in 3-bin systems at multiple different high schools, and the level of engagement that requires at that specific school to talk with teachers and, you know, be on emails and talk with custodians and meet with students and be able to make regular visits, and that it takes a big capacity to do that. So we've just been talking about, we have alumni of our program who's been working with our program for 3 years now, implementing a system on her campus. Now she is a college student at Mills, and she's been kind of supporting in a more leadership status, if you will, with the work we're doing this year, trying to spread the 3-bin systems to other campuses. And I just was wondering what we thought of, like, even creating some type of role to assist Nancy in having some type of individual be more of a liaison that can go meet with different campuses and be kind of that one-on-one support that often 3-bin system requires, at least at the high school level. And if anyone had any kind of thoughts on that.
Yeah, so when we're talking about positions, and again, I don't want to discourage, I don't want you guys to get the impression that we wouldn't fund salaries or we wouldn't fund positions. But I think that what our board really would want to know is what happens after the position ends, right? So we do want to see sustainable programs at schools. We do want to see, you know, a lot of effort into schools. Sometimes when a program gets up and running, you know, if it can be institutionalized in a school, you might not need that liaison going forward, but sometimes you will. I mean, we've seen programs where, you know, there's funding for a certain number of years and then the coordinator leaves or the parent leaves or the teacher leaves and it all falls apart, right? So whenever we're going to be asked to fund a position to support schools, we want to understand, well, what's going to happen when that ends and what are you going to do to make it institutionalized or seek other funding to make it continue? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And this is Senna, and I'll add on to that a little bit because like I see a need for in the schools, let's say if they're getting a green team started, and I know that we have consultants that are out there and working in the schools maybe for 2 weeks at a time, getting it running in the lunchroom, there every day, working with staff. And I know that from what I've seen in the schools, that's been very helpful. And so Ruth, what you just said, it really gave me the idea that, you know, perhaps looking at involving, you know, somehow community members or parents in that also, to where people could be trained to, no matter who leaves, at least there are other people involved that could, you know, pass it on or step in.
You know, now that we have this great Zoom resource, it's the, you know, having, you know, sharing opportunities for some of those best practices across the county would be, you know, something we might want to consider doing as the Altamont board, you know, having a quarterly call or a biannual call and just say, hey, here's some things that are going on in different schools or different organizations or different projects across the county for waste prevention, recycling, composting. I think it would be really good for everybody to know about them. We're going to put this and this on our website, maybe ask somebody to speak, because what you're describing, Fenna, is, you know, sometimes we come upon a strategy that really seems to be working, and if it can be, if it can be expanded across other schools or other projects, I think it would be good to share that.
Yes, yes, very good.
So we might ask you as grantees, you know, hey, now that you're a grantee, not only do we want you to give us your report and share your resources, we may call upon you to present at a at a webinar.
Great idea.
Are there any other questions? I know Ruth has to get off here soon with some other commitments, but I just wanted to see if there's anybody else. Of course, if anyone thinks of anything after tonight, feel free to send an email and I can do my best to answer, or I can reach out to Ruth or someone and we can get answers, or I can send contacts. Just let me know what anybody needs.
Thanks, Lauren. This is Sarah Weber. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope it all went well for everyone. I hope everyone was able to access it and it wasn't too complicated. We'd love some feedback as well, if you didn't mind sending me an email. And I think that's about it then, Ruth.
Great. Well, thanks everybody.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Lauren.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
That's it.